has a different reader. It's actually the kind I like, with the foggy LED that's brighter. I don't know what generation, you'd call these, or I guess I could turn it around and see. Nope, they took off the sticker. Well, it's the one where, the LED isn't clear, which I like, because it's a lot brighter like that.
Hey guys, it's Chase here on Gemmy Master Animatronics, and today what I have for you are 3 Gemmy 2004 and 5 prototype Santas. One of them having a snowman as well, but all 3 of these were sent to me by a good friend of mine because it was believed that all 3 of these had an Eprom in them, and him and another friend of mine wanted the file taken off of the Eprom. Which, of course I said I'd do for them. So these were all sent to me just for that purpose, to take the file off, so in case the Eprom ever failed, or, there was some issue down the road, we have the file, so, in case anything happens, a new Eprom can be burned onto these, and these things can virtually last, as long as we want. However, when I got these in, only 2 of them had EPROMs. The Grooving Santa in the middle did not have an EPROM. That one actually has a production chip, which I do want to go over a little bit later in the video to kind of talk about that, because that is kind of odd. But for the rest of them, they did have EPROMs. I pulled the files off. So they're, they're good to go. They're all put back together, and now the file is safe in case anything ever happens to these things. So these items came initially from D.D. Rich Art 1, which I think he got them from a big pallet of samples, or like just a big box of samples that he got from somebody. I don't remember. This was years ago. I don't think these were from the castle. These are just kind of intuitive shape to have come from the castle, except for the Rawhide Santa. The Cowboy one, that one's cosmetically, it's definitely seen better days, but it does fully work. And I mean, other than like the fur and the little bit of chipping on the boots. The lot of chipping on the boots. It looks rather nice. I mean, compared to the rest of them, he's definitely in the poorest of shape. But I mean, the 2 on the side, the Grooving Santa and the Santa Warming Scene, those are basically mint. So, what was I thinking? Yeah. So these all, from what I know, came from D. Rich Art 1, and then he sold them to the friend I got these off of, and they've just been kind of like sitting on a shelf. So they've been taken very well care of. I mean, they started out in a box, and then they were in a collector's home, and then a second collector's home, and again just sitting on a shelf. So they've definitely been taken well care of, and they're all in pretty nice shape. The only thing that's wrong, as far as like just build wise with these things, is the Santa Warming Scene. One of the legs on Santa is, I think it's come loose. I haven't tried to look into it. I'm not going to. I don't want to, like, glue it or anything. I'll let the owner decide what he wants done with that. But the other side of the foot is attached, so he does still stand up. And it's actually, they use a wire, like a posable wire on the on the other side of the shoe. But the one that's facing us, like the one that's closest to me, that has plastic that's snapped, and it's very yellowed. But that's the only yellowed piece that I saw on this. Of course, the actual structure itself, it needs to stand up. That's the only yellowed piece, which, of course, is great. The Grooving Santa and the Santa Warming Scene, those are both pretty pre-production. I think the Grooving Santa is definitely the most pre-production out of all of them. The Rawhide Santa seems to be pretty production when I opened him up. I mean, he has, the regular production plastic, the mechanisms. I didn't see any pink stuff in him. But the Grooving Santa and the Santa Warming Scene, those 2 have the pink glue. Santa, he's made of resin, the grooving one. The Warming Scene, I think he might be, the inner base might be resin, like not the cover itself, but I think the actual like structure inside might be resin. It definitely, the fire itself on like the campfire, that's made of clear resin. It's been painted over. So those 2 definitely have resin pieces, but the Grooving Santa himself, it's very weird because he has a common mechanism that was used back in the day, but he is just, I mean, it's really, like, it's probably the most pre-production setup I've seen, at least in person. I mean, not online, but in person it's the most I've seen, because he's got a bunch of just different resin pieces cut out. It's all glued together to hold up the gearboxes. And then his boots are resin on him, which that's fine. But the actual mechanisms themselves, those are all, held up by resin. It's all pink stuffed together. It's all a mess. The base, I don't think is resin. I think it was initially thought that it was, but it just seems like regular plastic to me, which would make sense because the base, I think, was commonly used back then too. It definitely is hand painted though, and I could be wrong about it not being resin. I don't know. It didn't really seem like resin to me when I opened it up, but there are several different types that Gemmy used, thick or thin, different colored resin, clear, cloudy. It's just, they use a lot of different types. But I think with all that being said, they all fully work. I didn't have to do any repair jobs to them. I did have to sew the back of the grooving Santa. I did sew him back up. He was sent to me unsewed in the back because I think he had a few gears replaced in him. So I did stitch him back up. With the grooving Santa, with the chip that he has, it's funny. So he was the first one that I decided to open up because he was going to be the easiest, because he's got the plastic base, super easy to unscrew and take the EEPROM out. Well, I was playing with him, I pushed the button and I see all the lights and everything, but I noticed that there was no red glowing LED, which would be coming from the EEPROM reader. There was none in the base or in the body or anything. So I was texting my friend. I was like, hey, are we sure this has an EEPROM? And sure enough, I opened up the base and there is not one. It has a production chip, but it is separated from the boards that it has. It does have a few different boards in him. He's got 2 motor drivers in him, and then he's got the production chip, which was all wrapped up in painter's tape, or masking tape, whatever you want to call it. It's just that it's like the color of the wall, like that, that color tape, and it's used on a lot of prototypes. But yeah, it was just a production chip wrapped up in masking tape, which you can commonly find that on samples or prototypes. But the weird part is that this item was from 2005 and the production one was from 2006. Now, if this one was made in like 2006 or 2007, it would make sense because they would have already made the chip for the 2006 model. So they could have just used that chip on this sample, not had to worry about using an EEPROM, if they already had one of those chips lying around. So the weird thing about it is when Gemmy is, programming these items, the factory itself, they'll use the EEPROM and then they'll send off the program. Once they're satisfied with the program, they'll send it off to the company that they choose to get the chip from, which in this case it was Elan, and then Elan would mass make the production chips and then send them off to Gemmy. So they would have had to buy these chips in bulk to use it on this Santa, which is very weird. I mean, like this sample was made with a production chip, so I mean it had to be made. Like it's like, okay, if this is gonna get made, we're gonna go ahead and already order like all the chips and stuff. Like it's just, it's very odd to see. Like you really don't see production chips on items that were made like before the actual item was made. Like it's, if that makes sense, it's just very weird for them to have done that. And I mean, unless they had like everything aligned, ready to be put on the shelves, they definitely would have taken a risk with that. However, there was a vinyl head version made of this Santa. So this is the plush head, and the plush head was actually made, but the production one, I think the head's a little bit bigger on that. It looks a little bit different. But there was a vinyl version made too, which I would imagine the head was made of, resin or spin mold or something on the prototype. And that one might have actually had the EEPROM. So then they had the chips made and then put it on him. So that's the only logical thing I can think of, because there's no reason why they would have ordered a bunch of chips and then taken the risk, had it in the showroom and, all that. So that was kind of weird to see. But the rest of them have EEPROMs. The Rawhide Santa has an Elan EEPROM reader. It has an EMM 5500 -2 reader. And then the Santa warming scene, that one has just a regular Sonex, which the Sonex chips, or the Sonex readers, those were used before the Elan ones. But what's interesting is that it's a very late Sonex program, because the audio on it's actually very good. If you were to look at Gemmy items, a lot of the pop culture ones, like just those in particular, like they don't really have the best audio quality. Those have the Sonex brand chips in them, and Gemmy was just not programming those correctly. I mean, you can get, as a friend of mine will say, you can get really good sound quality with the Sonex ones if you actually program it correctly. And the Santa warming scene being a very late sample, or not, like I said, a very late Sonex program item, like from 2005, it actually was programmed correctly, and it does have the good sound quality. But yeah, without further ado, I will go ahead and activate them all for you guys. I'll start with the Rawhide Santa, because that one is my favorite. I love it. I mean, the production one, the sample, it doesn't really matter. The song on it is awesome. And you'll notice the sound quality on it's very nice. Not just because it has the Eprom, but because the amplification is actually done correctly. Gemmy doesn't really do the amplification on the tabletop items well, because they just use a transistor to do it, which is not the way you should do it. I mean, it does amplify the audio, but it also makes it like extremely distorted. So the speaker is hooked directly to the Eprom reader, so it does sound a little bit better. It does have that stupid transistor that amplifies it on the reader itself, but it doesn't sound as bad as the production ones. And if you were to hook it up to the other outputs, like the GSPK on the reader, it would sound a lot better. But yeah, here it is.
Rolling through the clouds we're going. Keep the reindeer rolling tonight. My sack is filled with toys for good girls and boys. My sleigh is loaded for this flight. Oh, kids anticipating, can't stand the waiting for their toys to arrive.
The program on it is just so cool. Like it's such an animated item for how small it is. I will play it one more time for you guys. And if you couldn't see, it does have LEDs that light up. It's a miracle that none of them are burnt out, and it's probably the last time it'll be played for a while now, just to ensure that it doesn't burn out. I don't know what the owner of it's going to do, but I mean, he understands too that these the LEDs just don't last very long.
Rolling through the clouds we're going. Keep the reindeer rolling tonight. My sack is filled with toys for good girls and boys. My sleigh is loaded for this flight. Oh, kids anticipating, can't stand the waiting for their toys to arrive. Oh, hit 'em up, move 'em on, hit 'em up tonight. Call 'em out, write 'em in, let 'em out. Christmas comes tonight.
He does have a glitch that he still does. Sometimes the LEDs will flash faster than they're supposed to, and it's very weird that they do that, because they would have had to been programmed in at a certain point. So the fact that they, flash super fast, and they continue to do that until the program ends, is very weird. It was doing that back in the day. It still does it now. I don't think the production one does that, but it doesn't have any other glitches other than that. And again, this is why we save the file on them, because if that is a sign that the Eprom is going, which any little sign like that, it could be a hint that it might be going. I don't think it's going. I think it's fine. It's just, it's a pre-production item. It's not going to work as well as the production one, to an extent. Here is the Grooving Santa. Some of the LEDs on this side are burnt out, but they could probably be replaced. I don't think it really matters that much. It's, because you could just buy a production one and then take the LEDs out of that one and then put them in this one. And again, this one does not have an Eprom. The sound quality is going to be a little bit quiet on this. So not the quality. The audio on it's going to be a little bit quiet. I don't know why it is. It does have a transistor amplifier, but it still is pretty quiet on him.
What's it gonna do? Are you gonna get down? What's it gonna do? Are you gonna get down? How you gonna do it if you really don't want to dance? My
a really cool audio. I mean, you know, it's still cool even though it doesn't have an EEPROM. I would have loved to have taken the file off of this and then audio ripped it. But one, I think somebody already audio ripped one of these things, not the prototype, but a production one. And two, it's not going to be as good as sound quality because it's not the file or the audio is not coming from like the reader or anything. It's coming from a production chip, which those are the audio on those is a little bit more compressed. But overall, he works very well. It may not look very pretty inside, but it does work. And I did, you know, sew it up nicely, leaving enough room for everything in there to kind of move around and as it's supposed to. So the last one right here, again, this one has a Sonex reader, but the audio on it is not very bad. I know that usually with the Sonex ones they're pretty poor, but this one sounds pretty nice. It's just a little bit amplified because it does, again, use that stupid transistor amplifying circuit. So it will sound a little bit bad on this. And the butt on Santa has a split gear. It wasn't moving when I got it, but I was able to adjust it to the point where it's going to move. Even though it has a splitting gear, it's at that point where it's like not too bad, so it'll continue to, you know, keep driving the gearbox, but you know, it's really getting there to where it's not going to grip onto the motor enough to keep it going. But here it is, and I don't know if any of the campfire scenes actually have the motion or the animation that the snowman does. He moves his hands back and forth, which is cool. He doesn't move them up and down, so I don't know if any of those have it like this, because I don't think this in particular model was produced. I know that there was a Santa and a snowman one, but he actually has phrases. This one does not. This one just plays audio and like a bell ringing when he moves his butt around. But yeah, I'll show them to you guys. This one being 2005, it's kind of weird that it has a Sonex, but it could have been a pre-existing file, so they just used the Sonex reader again, and they would have had a bunch left over. And I will show him from a different angle so you guys can see, because his butt does light up. I guess I can probably show it like from right here. You should be able to see it. I don't know. Yeah, you can see it. It's just got an LED in there. So yeah, that is all of these. But anyways, that's pretty much it. I really hope you guys enjoyed. Just all super nice pieces. They're very cool. I'm, you know, very happy that I was the one that got to, you know, take the file off of these, and because I like seeing this kind of stuff in person. It's very cool. And like I said, these are not mine. They'll be going back to the owner. I'll actually be packing them up after this video because I told him, you know, I'll make a video on them, then I'll ship them back off to you. He's like, yeah, that's totally fine. But yeah, I will see you guys again next time.